Good morning or afternoon, where some of you might be, or even good evening. I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. I'm the editor and VP of Streaming Media. Welcome to session 2 of day 2 of number 7 of Streaming Media Connect. This is our 7th virtual event. And of course, all we do when the speakers and I get on before every panel is talk about when we're going to meet again in person. Hopefully we'll be doing so soon. In fact, we've got our next streaming media event planned for Boston at the end of May, Streaming Media East on May 24th and 25th, with the Content Delivery Summit and Streaming Media University workshops on Monday, May 23rd. You can go to streamingmedia.com/East, and we're open for registration. The program will be online within a few days as well. But in the meantime, we are in the midst of a great week of panels and keynotes and discussions, as well as a terrific workshop we've got coming up on Friday called The Best Streaming Gear and How to Use It for those gearheads in the audience. All of these will be available on demand after the fact. So if you're not able to make some of these panels and other sessions live, you can certainly watch them after the fact. Also, just for being here, you're entered into a random drawing to win an Amazon gift card. I'll be announcing the winner of the gift card at the end of this hour, and you'll get an email if you've won. Probably not until next week, though, so but watch out for it. I'd like to thank our diamond sponsors who are sponsoring this entire week's worth of sessions, and that's Bird Dog and Harmonic. We've got a couple of brief video messages from them right now. And I would also like to thank the sponsor of this panel, MediaMelon. Thanks so much for helping us make Streaming Media Connect possible. Before we jump in, a few housekeeping notes. If you do have questions for our panel, please put them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom window rather than in the chat. It just makes it easier for the moderator and I to keep track of them if they're all in one place. So we'd appreciate that. Also, we do have live subtitles turned on. If you find them distracting or don't need them, you can go to the live transcript button at the bottom of your Zoom window, click on disable transcript, and that will turn them off. So with that, let me welcome our moderator, the esteemed, the estimable, the indefatigable, Chris Pfaff. How are you, Chris?
I am well. I'm all those things, but so are you. And
well,
it's a beautifully bright and cold winter day here in the New York area, but we're going to heat it up in just a few seconds. So
absolutely, it's the same here in Wisconsin. So so take it away and bring on our esteemed, estimable, and indefatigable panelists.
Yes, and here they are. They are the four horsemen and women of connected TV advertising, the Holy Grail. For those who think this is a different session, just stay here. It'll be better than what you were going to do anywhere else. Our first panelist is the host, I should say the sponsor of this panel. That's Kumar Subramanian. He's the CEO of MediaMelon. He joins us from San Francisco. Hello, Kumar. How are you?
Hi. Good. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Eric. Good to be here.
And just give us a very brief log line on what MediaMelon is for those who don't know.
Sure. MediaMelon provides a data infrastructure platform for streaming companies. We work with several, premium streaming services and provide them with visibility on experience, user engagement, and monetization.
Great, thanks. Our next, and thank you for sponsoring as well. Next panelist is Jessica Masters. She is the director of East Coast sales with Roku, and she joins us from New York City. Welcome, Jessica.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so my name's Jessica Masters. I'm director of advertising sales here at Roku. just quick brief overview of Roku. There's so many different arms to our business, but essentially Roku is a platform where viewers can stream top free or paid programming from channels like Netflix, Hulu, Roku channel, and thousands more. You can stream via device or you can stream via Roku television. And then from where I sit, I really am focused on monetizing as many ad impressions as possible that run through the platform. So really excited to be here. Thanks, Chris.
Great, and thank you for that. Our next panelist is Aulden Kaye. Now, she is the Director of Advertising Partnerships at Philo. She also joins us from New York City. Welcome, Aulden.
Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to be here. And a little bit about Philo. Philo is a virtual MVPD. We are a live linear streaming service with more than 60 networks from programmers like AMC, A&E, Discovery, Viacom, and Hallmark, in addition to a deep VOD library of more than 60,000 titles.
Great overview. Thank you, and welcome, Aulden. And last but not least is somebody who generally needs no introduction, but for those who don't know, Tal Chalozin, the CTO and co-founder of Innovid. Here he is. Welcome, Tal. He joins us from New York City, and give us a brief log line in both English and Hebrew of Innovid.
Hey, hello, Chris. Hello, everyone. Excited to join this equally diverse panel, which is amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Streaming Media. So I'm Tal Chalozin. I'm CTO and co-founder of Innovid. Innovid is a CTV management and measurement and delivery company. We recently took the company public after an exciting 14 years of running as a private company, and we're very excited to carry the stock ticker of CTV. So we mean business, and that's what we do. We power that technology for the world's largest brands. And a very large share of connected television ads in the United States and in many other countries are ads served by us. I'm just going to say shalom to give you the Hebrew version.
Well, fantastic. And let's start with you, Tal, because last week Innovid announced the acquisition of TV Squared, which is, of course, a big deal in the industry. And back to your point about your stock ticker symbol, one of the interesting things, of course, about this panel is there are a lot of people who years ago would have said connected TV is really just smart TV or boxes like Roku or Fire TV or Chromecast. But that term is really kind of spread a bit. But that doesn't matter in terms of what you're doing, and how are you providing even more value for advertisers and publishers in the ecosystem now? And please talk about the integration of TV Squared.
Sure. So first of all, connected television, as we like to say, this is more of a kind of a big term for a revolution more than anything else. It's clearly a technical term for a device that is connected to the internet and content that could be watched not through traditional cables or satellite infrastructure, but through the internet. But again, it's a more of a catch-all term for the streaming revolution. So it's more and more homes across the United States and worldwide that choosing to disconnect from the traditional way of getting access to multi-channel television and choosing kind of to jump on the apps world bandwagon. So that's overall, but at the same time, again, this transformation is driven first and foremost by viewers that are going out to Target or Walmart and buying a Roku device or any others. But at the same time, marketers realize that this is kind of the holy grail, as television was always the main vehicles to drive persuasion and to tell a story on a big screen. Right now, connected television brings the best of both worlds, brings amazing things from digital, accountability, one-to-one targeting, personalization at scale, and obviously much better measurement, and the same idea of a big screen, non-skippable, high-quality messaging. But that's the world we live in, and I'm sure people who listen to panel like this and many others, maybe the biggest question that marketers are asking right now is, this is all amazing, but I want to get a little bit more, call it transparency, or at least look under the hood of who is actually watching. And because the market is very fragmented, the question that we're getting from marketers that tell me, what's the unduplicated reach? How many audience homes or people, obviously, preferably, I'm reaching by buying the Roku channel or the Roku network or ESPN or Peacock or Hulu or any other channel, and what's the duplication between them? And last point, I'm sorry for hogging my mic here on the soapbox, but my last point, just to bring it into why we're so excited about measurement and why TV Square is an area we're so jazzed about, is that as we like to talk about connected television, there's clearly the world of traditional linear television that it's declining, but it's very far from disappearing. So almost every marketer is buying media across both types of, call it, infrastructures, and we want to give marketers a holistic view. And this is where TV Square helps us a lot to bring in data from the linear world and to be able to draw a picture about viewership and reach cross-channel.
Yeah, and again, thank you for bringing this into literally the title of this panel, that holy grail, which of course many of us who are have seen the birth of DTV and then streaming have been waiting for years for this moment where we were pulling away from analytics that were much more centered on linear. Aulden, you're with a premium channel that's 100% programmatic. But it's interesting, I want you to talk about, how you're serving advertisers and, talk a little bit more about what the value stream is there, because of course, you're a perfect jumping off point from, linear, the MVPDs to virtual.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. I think, jumping off of what Tal was saying, in terms of linear TV and that sort of behavior, what we actually see at Philo is that linear TV is not going away at all. It's just the delivery mechanism that's changing, and that creates a lot of opportunities. In terms of our subscriber behavior, we see people watching more than 3 hours a day, 85% in that live linear window and 98% on the TV screen. So we really are seeing people use Philo the way, you would use a traditional TV service. On the ad side, what's really different is that all of our ads are 100% addressable, delivered impression by impression to a specific viewer who's watching, a given show at a given time, the right ad to the right person in the right context. And as you mentioned, we are 100% programmatic. And there are a number of reasons that we decided to go that way. When Philo was started, we're an independent company. We didn't inherit a direct ad sales team. And so we decided not to build one. And we had a lot of conversations across the industry with advertisers, with agencies about, the way that they were looking at CTV. And I think one of the big things that we heard is, Philo we haven't released recent subscriber numbers. The most recent ones that we did release were 850,000 subscribers, and we've grown since then. And that is a great scale, but it is not, when people think about buying TV, they're thinking about, more than 100 million households in the US. And so we understood that advertisers were not going to be buying just on Philo, that they were going to be looking for their audiences on Philo, but also across the CTV ecosystem and linear, like more traditional linear. And so we wanted to make addressability as easy as possible. And so we kind of leaned into programmatic as a way to enable that. So we're doing everything programmatically. We're passing through signals in the bid stream, like client-side device ID and IP address, to enable advertisers to find their relevant audiences on Philo and outside of Philo. And then also, to Tal's point, to do that sort of holistic measurement across the media that they are buying on Philo and across the CTV and broader ecosystem. So that's sort of our and
I know that live linear is pretty huge for you, and for those out there who want to watch Gunsmoke, you can do it on Philo. So just know that you're getting high quality all around. And thank you for that overview, Jessica. First of all, I want to congratulate you on everything that you're doing and what your company's doing. And I also saw great news that one of my boyhood heroes, Weird Al Yankovic, is getting the biopic treatment from Mr. Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe. So kudos to you on that. But let's get to the ad side. Recently, you launched an ad business in Mexico, and I dare say that given everything in your environment, that I would just, see you being an incredible engine for CTV growth. But also talk about that expansion, and also talk about, for those who don't know, OneView and what that is in Roku.
Yeah, so we're definitely focused on global. I will say my remit is the US, so I will, keep that focused here. But I think it goes back to what Tal and Aulden were saying. For us, we're in 56 million households, so that's an enormous reach. And when you think about co-viewing and multiple people in a household, that's over 150 million people, right? And for Roku and really the entire addressable streaming television landscape, it really goes back to the data. So we have a direct connection with our consumers that provides us with deterministic first-party data. So we utilize that for targeting and such. Back in 2019, we acquired DataZoo, which we've rebranded OneView, and I will, double click on Alden's point of automation and programmatic, because that's really where we see the business and the marketplace going. So we're really focused on that. And from a OneView perspective, historically, our customers have really only been able to leverage Roku data if they're buying Roku media direct from us, right? So that's our inventory within our network of channels, or the Roku channel, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later in terms of AVOD or ad-supported free streaming.
Right.
But now with OneView, we're able to allow our customers to leverage the Roku data, not just on Roku media, but as they start to expand and bring in other deals into the platform, they can apply Roku data to their Hulu deal, their Pluto deal, the Tubi deal, and not just streaming deals, but as we think about cross-channel. So historically, streaming television, OTT, whatever you call it, in the living room has been a branding vehicle. We've seen television dollars move our way. But really where we see the future of this is how do we utilize retargeting based off of really smart deterministic data to drive lower funnel outcomes down the funnel.
Right, because, and by the way, for those who don't know, you had just purchased DataZoo, I guess not too long ago. So you're looking cross-channel, and I think for those who are familiar with where Roku started, that's a really interesting way to build value across, the whole sort of schema, if you will. I mean, and what I think is interesting as well is that, of course, and I know this isn't necessarily your purview, but it can't be denied that what Roku has achieved during the pandemic is just incredible, not just in terms of numbers, but also the launch of Roku Originals. The Roku channel just keeps going from strength to strength. I mean, I would guess that that's a very powerful asset for you in your position.
Yeah, I would say our two main focuses are content. And when I say content, it's the Roku channel. We launched the Roku channel in 2017. And particularly over the last year or so, we've seen tremendous growth. I think, historically, people have talked, advertising is going to go away. They have all these options. They can just pay for an ad-free environment. But we've really found that's not the case. People don't hate ads. They hate irrelevant ads. And to Alden's point, when you have a one-to-one connection with a consumer versus one-to-many, you can serve a really relevant ad, right? So as we start thinking about the Roku channel, it's grown to be a top 5 channel on the platform. We have over 80,000 pieces of content, everything from live channels to kids content to Hispanic, really a wide breadth and depth there. And then to your point, we are really making, a point to get into the originals game. We acquired the Quibi library. We launched a full-length feature film, Zoe's Extraordinary Christmas, which was a reboot of the NBC show there. So, we're excited for where that's going, and that coupled with the automation that we can bring to the marketplace, because not only can we retarget cross screen, but then we can become more transparent with reach and frequency, including linear television, because we have the ACR data from our connected Roku television.
Exactly. So, yeah. And that's incredibly key. And, Kumar, since you are very much dedicated, and of course the company has been to really enabling better engagement across the board. Talk about your Smart Play streaming, offering and what you're finding, particularly, let's say, in the last year with the explosion of CTV advertising.
Sure. Just to give a context on how we collect data. So we have a piece of software that runs on pretty much all the devices, all the players, including Roku or Tizen or mobile phones, web. And that piece of software sends data every few seconds. So we get a full view on what content people are seeing. So this is all done on behalf of publishers. So this only happens if our publisher customers install our piece of software. So right now we are on over 50 million devices. Customers include companies like A&E Networks, which is one of the panelists and one of the, in this conference. This month we launched a service with Dish in Latin America and Mexico. So we are very excited about that. So we also work with video platform providers. As an example, SES, which is a partner for us at Dish. We work with Zype, which in turn has hundreds of publishers. So we get data from all these devices. So some of the things that we observe are, I mean, first off, the reason they do this is because publishers are concerned about playback experience. We collect data from the players, but also from the CDNs, from the way the content is encoded. So we get a full view of how people are experiencing the media. How do you retain customers? So some of the statistics that we've seen, I mean, Roku is clearly very popular in the US, but outside the US, we see a lot of use of other devices. I mean, the share that different devices comprise is dramatically different. We also see differences in the experience from different CDNs, different players, different devices. So there is a wealth of insights that we're able to provide publishers. Errors, just as an example, no publisher has zero errors. There's tons of things that go wrong all over in the workflow. So in terms of what we are seeing and where things are heading, I think that the device mix is changing a lot. Clearly, CTV is, by CTV, we of course mean, connected devices in terms of Roku and as well as on the smart TV itself. That's increasing a lot. I think it's a combination of the demand. People are, during the pandemic, we're at home and we're seeing a lot of content on the big screen, combined with supply from fast channels from companies like Philo. But that fact is not the same globally. We see that in some other countries, in Asia in particular, the share of mobile devices is more than CTV, far more. Even desktop is more than CTV. So all that is going to change over time, I would think. So there is growth that you can expect from those markets for CTV.
Yeah, and let's stay here for a second. Talk about that global growth in terms of insights. I mean, we have a lot of visibility through IAB and others in terms of what things look like here in the U.S. But where are you seeing? Is Latin America more of an opportunity, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. If you look at the growth, I mean, the amount of the number of hours per unit time per day per month that people are consuming content, that's increasing a lot over streaming because the shift from linear to OTT that has happened more so in the US than in other countries. I mean, we'll only look at the OTT or CTV data. So that shift has happened far more in the US than in Latin America or in Asia. So we see that. So the growth in the amount of time people spend, number of users, that's just exploding. It's exploding by 20-30% easily. So this mix of devices, the sophistication of advertising, whether you use client-side or server-side ad insertion. Obviously, for CTV, you need to have server-side ad insertion, but that provides better quality of experience and so many other advantages. We integrate with server-side ad insertion services because we need to provide them with, provide publishers with the capability to understand how people are interacting when an ad comes up, right? What kind of ad load is too much or too less? So these are all things that are different between different markets. Even the pricing, how much people are paying for CTV is very different. I mean, and also CTV versus linear is hugely different. That ratio is very different, in the US versus other markets.
Right, exactly. And by the way, Aulden is going to wrap your knuckles. You referred to Philo as a fast channel. No, it is not. But anyway, I'm just for those who are going to parse this out.
I'm just saying supply from companies.
That's okay. I'm just cleaning up anything that could be cleaned up. So let's talk about the Olympics are happening now. Always a big moment for NBC, for the world, for television watching, and for those of us who are looking at the measurement of ads. So, NBC recently signed on iSpot TV, which was a big deal. Nielsen was basically displaced there. But my question for all of you is, are we now finally in an era of true transparency and measurement for CTV advertising? I'm going to have Tal answer this one first. And also, Tal, if you can talk a little bit about Innovid Key and let people know what that is as well.
Sure. Okay, so I guess I'm going to talk for the remainder 35 minutes of the panel.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
If that's okay.
Yeah. We're going to put you in a sub channel. So
thank you.
Exactly.
Let me unpack that. First of all, about your question about are we in a world of let's call it one-to-one measurement or census level measurement,
yes,
for lack of a better term, versus a panel-based as previously used. The short answer is no. We're getting there, but we're definitely not there. There are two real buckets of television: linear television, connected television. Connected television, in terms of share of advertising dollar in 2021, was roughly 18% of the total pie. The 18% is clearly impression level measured, so it's not a panel based. It's a census based. Every impression is being measured individually. The battle right now is about who will, or the set of companies that will create a new level of technology for the linear side of television, and maybe a better way of describing the holistic view across both of them. And that applies in many events like the Olympics, like the Super Bowl, like many other events that clearly you can watch content across screen, and every marketer wants to see the full picture. So to answer your question, we're not there yet, but there are many contenders on that. Just shameless plug to Innovid, we clearly have a skin in that game. To explain, we don't play in the linear space prior to the acquisition of TV Squared, but because we're serving for an individual brand, we're serving 100% of their ads in the connected television space. So look at Innovid almost like the FedEx. So we are the network that deliver the packets, and we know very well what's the source, what's the recipient, and what exactly was it delivered on time, or things like that. So we know very well about everything happens on CTV. We needed to get a better view on linear. Your question about Innovid Key, and I'm not trying to make it an Innovid pitch by any means. I'm going to generalize it more. The biggest problem in order to solve the measurement issue is you need an identity. In order to say right now there is a single view or a single impression of an ad on ESPN, and a single impression on Hulu, and a single impression on the Roku channel. Are there 3 different homes, or this is a single home watching 3 different channels on 3 TVs, or on a single TV? Never mind. In order to do that, you need that impression to be pegged with an identifier that let us know to answer that exact question. This is not a solved problem right now. There's a couple of identifiers available in the industry right now: device IDs, cookies in other devices, IP address that is shamelessly used right now on many places. All of those are probably an interim solution. This is not a long-term solution. And the industry is building a different solution. Innovid Key is kind of first attempt by us to combine a lot of data out there and to create our household graph, a mapping of every home in the United States, and then connecting every impression to a given home.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And thank you for that, because I wanted people to understand what you're doing there. Jessica, let's talk about where we are in terms of true addressability and transparency from your side of things. Because of course, you know, you've got a lot of insights. And by the way, statistic here, I did allude to IAB. They put out a figure, I guess, last year saying that they see worldwide OTT advertising revenues reaching $80 billion in 2022. Just a side note. So Jessica, if you can give us your take on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, with OneView, that's really a focus of what we can and should be able to offer: transparency, reach and frequency across all screens, including the television screen, to Paul's point. So, you know, we have the capability from a first party perspective to measure that reach and frequency if folks are bringing in their other OTT buys and cross channel buys into the platform. We also doubled down. Over half of ad impressions running on streaming television run through the Roku platform. So a really large portion of that runs on the platform. The other thing to note is our partnership with Nielsen in terms of total ad ratings. So that is also an effort to, bring in a third-party measurement company to help with the transparency around reach and frequency across all 4 screens. And really rooted in that Roku data. To Tal's point, you need that identifier, and on our platform, it's the 56 million plus households that we have a one-to-one connection with from a first-party deterministic standpoint.
Right. And just to give context, that has grown immeasurably in the last few years. So, I think for those who are watching this from both Tal and Jessica's points of view, we've seen an incremental increase in the ability from advertisers' point of view to gain that kind of CTV transparency. Aulden, again, you're in this very interesting position of being 100% programmatic, and you've got some views into where we are in terms of addressability. Give us sort of your take and sort of even some prognostication.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, I think Tal and Jessica are both coming more from the platform point of view. What we're basically trying to do at Philo is enable what they're doing. So when we think about measurement, we all sort of mentioned there's no measurement of record anymore, or not in CTV the way that there has been in traditional TV. And so our approach has been that, advertisers are going to want to use their own platform, their own third-party vendor, whichever device graph or key that they want to use. And our objective is to be as transparent as possible with the signals that we're passing through that will allow advertisers and platforms and measurement vendors to key off of those things. So that's sort of where we sit. We're completely measurement agnostic. We know that advertisers are going to be looking at different KPIs and with different platforms, and we're just trying to enable that. And I think also to Tal's point, like the identifiers are potentially in a state of flux. And so the other thing that we're doing is just looking ahead. We're also sitting on first party data from our, user registration. And so just looking ahead to understand, as the industry is changing, what the best, privacy compliant way is going to be to continue to evolve that.
Absolutely. It's a moving target. If we were doing this panel, if we had been doing this panel a year ago, we would not necessarily have seen what we've seen recently from Google, but moving to a quote unquote cookieless world is maybe an inevitability, and given the California privacy legislation, that was huge, of course. Kumar, since you touch so many devices and you've got so much data, I mean, what's your take on where we are in terms of true addressability?
Well, obviously with CTV and OTT, it provides a return path, and that's the reason you have more perfect data. And obviously more data is better. But my view is that there wasn't not that the move towards alternative measures are a good thing for the industry. But one of the benefits that was there earlier was that there was one source of data that everyone was measuring and buying and activating on. So you mentioned about, some publishers having picked some alternative measures, but it's not enough, right? You need the buy side also to use that, because they have their first party data. They want to activate against that. So what's needed in the industry, I think, is a common framework. I don't think that's going to be one, and it's not necessarily good for the industry to have just one way to measure. I think it's important to have multiple ways to measure. There is the Roku has an identifier, Innovid talked about theirs. There's Trade Desk has one. So how do you put it all together? I mean, they're all valuable. They all bring different vectors of information and insights. I do not think they're all competing with one another, but there is the need for a common metric, common framework. So from what we see in the market, I think people are still using the panel data. But to help accelerate the move towards alternative measures, that kind of a common framework is required. The other thing is that the panel data is, demographically tuned, right? Because even though CTV is getting to be very popular, it is not popular at the same degree with all different demographics, whether it is location in the country or socioeconomic status. So if you want to address all the different demographics, you need to have a way to do that. And I think there are some panel vendors that are taking into account those aspects into measure. So my view is that I don't think the solution is just a different way of doing that's just going to replace what used to be there before, but a combination of different things put together in a unified framework. I do not know who's going to do that, but if one could exist, that will be the great thing.
Well, that's certainly manna to a lot of investment bankers' ears. You saying that, because that just suggests more consolidation. I'm only half joking, of course, but no, seriously, that's it's a very interesting point that you make, and of course, there's more we can talk about with respect to devices as well, because of course, the big company that's not on this panel is Apple. We did talk about Google, but we haven't talked about Apple enough. And my question generally to all of you, we'll start with you, Jessica. I mean, where do you see Apple in the mix here? Of course, they've purchased enough ad tech companies over the years. Do you see them getting even more involved in this arena?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always the possibility, right? They have the capital and talent there, but we really haven't seen them come out to be a forefront competitor from an advertising sales standpoint. I think it's yet to be seen what they do, but at this point, it hasn't really emerged to be a big competitor.
Yeah, and let's talk about content just for a second. And let's stay here with you, Jessica. The Roku Originals was just a great, I think, move. And as we do this panel, today is February 15th. It wasn't that long ago, just a few weeks ago, that a company that we haven't alluded to here yet, YouTube, of course, part of Google, part of Alphabet, just announced that they are ending their YouTube Originals group. Ben Rellis and several other friends have been there for years. And I find it interesting because, of course, I think it's undeniable that good content is just a great way to sell ads. Don't you feel that makes your job and life a little easier?
Yeah, I mean, I personally do. And my history is I spent 5 years at Hulu before coming to Roku. So I kind of saw that trajectory arc happen there too. So yeah, I mean, for an advertising sales team, it's wildly important and beneficial to have, original content. And I would even bucket it as exclusive content. So, we have over 200 licensing partners. So, we have a big licensing business as part of the Roku channel, and then also the originals piece to it. And we're only seeing that step up more and more as we move into the future. And it's a big focus of ours going into, the rest of 2022, 23 and beyond.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And Aulden, talk about that from your standpoint, because of course you've got a very interesting mix of channels, and you're, the perfect kind of cord cutting, offer. And I would think that there's some great way to sell against your content.
There is. So a few things on that. The first one is, I think, one of the things that differentiates Philo in the industry is that we don't have sports or news. We are actually sort of more of a true skinny bundle in the original sense. And the reason that we did that is that we are focused on keeping the service affordable. We're the most affordable virtual MVPD, $25 a month. And the way that content licensing works in a lot of cases is you can't just license like one or two networks from a programmer that makes sense. You have to license the whole group of them. And so that gets, expensive really quickly. Those costs are then passed on to customers. And so what you see is a lot of virtual MVPDs that look exactly like traditional cable packages. They have all the same networks and they cost the same amount. So we focused on sort of keeping this skinnier bundle that's very entertainment and lifestyle focused. And, we think of a lot of the other streaming services as being complementary. What that has done is it's created, we do have like a specific subscriber demo. We skew very heavily female, we skew younger than cable, we're socioeconomically and racially diverse, 50% families with kids. So we do have, I think, a particularly valuable and sort of we have, one corner of the sort of audience demographic that an advertiser might be looking for. The other thing that I would say on content is just not only on the ad side, but on the acquisition side, we see content being a huge driver of acquisition for us. So for example, recently, the most recent season of Yellowstone in fourth quarter was a huge driver of acquisition. We were the most affordable place to watch that. RuPaul's Drag Race just came back this season. We are the most affordable place to watch that. So we do see new content driving acquisition for sure. And I think, a lot of that had sort of been put on hold earlier in COVID. Now that the production's coming back, that's been a thing that has been impacting
and for those listening to that last sentence, I'm going to say it here first. Philo Originals. You heard it here first. So just kidding. No, we can dream. We can dream. But no, that was a great answer. And thank you for that. And kudos on RuPaul's Drag Race. Great show. And Yellowstone as well. It's the new Matlock, I guess. Just kidding. So Tal and Kumar, and you first, Tal. I'm going to ask you a question, and Jessica and Aulden could plug their ears because I'm going to talk about FAST. So Tal, obviously everyone talks about FAST, and it's really expanded the CTV advertising landscape. No kidding. Now combined with TV Squared, I would think that you would be able to really offer some enormous insights into that world.
Yeah, first of all, everyone talks about FAST that is working in the streaming industry. I don't hear my mom talk about FAST that much, at least not.
Yeah, just wait a minute. Just wait until Oprah does a special on FAST.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just for the record, if my mom is listening, she's not an Oprah fan. But anyway, back to that. Yeah. So we. An important point, we've been in the measurement space for the streaming side of the house for a very long time. The core product that Innovid is selling is an ad server. So we are the actual company that serves the ad, and we have the actual counter, and billing is done based on our numbers. We're audited every year, and billions of dollars being billed based on our numbers, including a very large share of ads on FAST channels. So we've been doing it for a long time. What we're adding right now is clearly super powering our measurement altogether, dashboard capability and others, and obviously a lot of focus on linear television. So that's call it rounding and massively expanding that offering. So that this is what we're doing, and we're very excited about this.
That's fantastic. And Kumar, give us your take on the FAST world, and particularly where it's been in the last 18 months and where it's going in terms of what MediaMelon is up to.
Well, we don't necessarily, provide analytics on FAST, but in general, what I can say about the industry is that about what's happening with FAST is that people have shown that they want that, lean back experience where they'd like somebody else to create a channel that, is a series of, I would think, award clips that cater to their personal interests. And it's a great way to, understand, develop first-party data and to create inventory and deliver that. And, if you look at, the whole thing about CTV is that it's got ACR, right? Otherwise, just a big monitor. And using ACR, you're able to get data on what people are watching, what ads they have been seeing, and that allows for that inventory to be created, creates the economics for that to happen, and for ads to be delivered. So I think it's a good, it's great development. So, but in terms of where I think things can head from here, I think being able to use the cross-platform data between FAST and other devices is where that information can be monetized better. I mean, the promise of CTV is, of course, that you can address performance marketing, address buyer, consumers who are likely to make a purchase decision. To be able to get to that point, and will increase the CPMs and make it more advantageous economically.
That's a great answer. And now it's time to go to questions, because we've had some great ones pop up. And the first one I'm going to address is from Durgesh Sandagaram. Durgesh asks if it's possible for speakers to talk about how companies are implementing contextual ad targeting and the pain points seen today in the industry. What percentage of ads are context-based or programmatically delivered? Tal, why don't you take this one on first?
Sure. First of all, just kind of blowing up the myth. As identifiers are disappearing, there was a big chatter, at least in the ed tech industry, is that we're moving back to context. So like the old world of television, aka in the absence of data, we will just use, or in user level data, we'll use context. The reality is that we always use context in digital marketing, and my bet is that it will always be a component in that. When someone is looking for, when I don't know, Kraft is looking for a cooking related content, obviously context is very, very important. But it will never be the only way. There will be there's many different attributes and context could be the app, could be the show itself, and it also could be past behavior or profiling of an individual or a household. I don't know, presence of children, a new baby, or things like that, based on, again, content that is being watched. So this is heavily being used right now. There are many privacy-safe ways to use that, and we're in very early days of enabling that. To Kumar's point earlier, there's no standardization on context right now about how is it passed in the bid stream, how is it passed in a VASTAG or in other places. There are many ways to do it, and we're doing it on a, call it a one-off basis with many media companies, but there's no standard of how to pass. What is that show? What's the genre? And anything like that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Jessica, do you want to address this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Tal. Like, for us, we primarily do audience-based targeting. You know, it's one-to-one. You know, we have this deterministic data, but context is definitely part of that. And I think when we think programmatically, yes, there is challenges with how things are passed in the bid stream, what information is passed, and whether or not it's the same across all channels, right? So, you know, I do think as we think about our original programming and the Roku channel, we do have offerings that are contextually relevant, content-based, but I would say we're still really focused on audience-based targeting, one-to-one, you know, onboarding client CRM data, creating segments, utilizing our ACR data for streaming behavior habits. That's really where we focus the majority of our efforts.
Yeah, and Kumar, do you want to take a crack at this one?
Yeah, so I would just say that context could also include session level information. So for instance, you know, how long a person has been seeing the video. Are they in the first 10 minutes of the clip or the last 40 minutes? Because obviously engagement could be different based on where they are. Another example is, you know, have they just seen a competing ad right before this one? Do you really want to show, maybe you want to show your ad next to your competitor, maybe you don't. Getting information around that, or even how long a person has been a subscriber, or have they installed the app? So how engaged they are, how committed they are. And also, you know, how do you know all this? You know, you have to do A/B testing, right? What kind of an ad load is heavy enough, or how much higher you can take it? So these are the kind of things that, you know, that will be important, and where we hope to participate in providing insights.
That's great. And Aulden, I don't want to leave you out. What are your thoughts on contextual ads in this context?
Sure. So jumping on to what Tal and Jessica were saying, we do pass a number of contextual signals in our requests, including grace note, genre, and rating. And what we found is interesting is, like, completely agreeing, there is no standardization. We see some people using, you know, IAB categories for targeting in CTV. On our side, you know, that never made a ton of sense, because the IAB categories are more like pharma. Like, we don't have pharma content necessarily. We have, you know, sitcoms and dramas and cooking competition shows and that sort of thing. So definitely there's a ton of room for and need for standardization, so that advertisers can actually leverage the signals that are being passed through. So that's sort of where we are in the contextual.
Yeah, thank you for that. And next question is from Stephen Christian, who, you know, tags on to what I said about Apple. He says Apple was mentioned in the context of ad tech, but not in its outsized influence on privacy/tracking. Is anyone scared about this? So I don't know, Jessica, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, this
If
really
not,
isn't my purview, where I sit within the company. So I don't know, maybe there's someone better suited.
yeah. Tal, you want to
I'm
weigh in?
happy to jump in.
Go for it.
I'll help Jess any day.
Perfect.
So about Apple privacy. Yeah, clearly changes in the operating system are crucial to ad business. You've seen everything going on with Facebook and Snap in the past, and now actually Snap on the positive side. That's on the mobile side, and there's no the exactly same thing should and will happen in the television space, where the largest operating system calls the definition of how data is being accessed. Largest operating system are Roku being the largest, Amazon Fire, and Apple as well. Specifically about the point for Apple, we've seen very little impact, close to nothing impact of the IDFA space. To be completely frank, actually, we've seen good tailwinds because of that, because marketers that used to use mobile-based tracking and use IDFA in order to find their audience now realize that mobile still works great, but not as good, and connected television was not impacted at all. So then relatively connected television is in a better place to tell that story. That's not to say that the future is somewhat uncertain, because similar thing could happen. I'm just point one thing is that a lot of the companies in the connected television measurement and targeting space are using IP address, specifically non-operating system based companies. And that's an attribute that Apple already says, that private relay is a service that they have that remove IP address. Google released a project called IP blindness that remove IP address, and Amazon is doing similar things on that side. So it's not to say that the game is over, or at least that that we know how the future will look. But so far, it didn't have a big impact.
Yeah, thank you for talking about Google and Amazon in that context as well. And Kumar, do you want to weigh in on this, because this is obviously a huge issue?
Yeah, it is, because you're giving. I mean, Apple has so much control, and you saw what happened with Facebook or Meta with IDFA. Luckily, connected TV, as Tal said, did not get impacted. But again, the fact that you are relying on just one metric could be a cause of concern. There are other signals that one can capture, like the device ID, app ID, and other things, or the household nature and the location. So the best strategy would be to capture more data points that, over time, it doesn't become reliant on just one piece of information. I mean, we talked about Apple, but ACR data could be a very similar situation, because that's critical in all CTV. There are a handful of companies, not many, and who own the glass. So they are getting very valuable proprietary data. Could they be in a situation of where Apple is today? Possible. So the best thing is to have multiple data points, so that you have safety built in.
Yeah, I want to come back to Jessica with a different question. So this one's for you, Jessica, directly from Jeffrey Hooter, who asks, to use the home solar analogy, can apps in Roku monetize the data from their specific viewers by putting it back into the Roku data grid, e.g. OneView?
Yeah, I mean, I think this touches on what we've just been talking about here, privacy, and privacy is the number one focus for Roku. So we do not let our data outside of our walls. So in order to leverage the Roku data, you need to be purchasing and interacting with the Roku media team directly. And yes, now with OneView, you can leverage the Roku data on other buys, but they need to be brought into the OneView platform in order to do so. So, we really maintain a high bar from a privacy perspective on all of our customers' data.
Yeah, and we'll stay here with you for a second. Stephen Christian asks, and he's using a more traditional definition of CTV. He asks, is CTV really a gold mine for consumer ad targeting and measurement? What differentiates the experience from other AVOD/FAST options?
Well, now we're getting into really minute details in terms of what AVOD versus FAST versus CTV. Now, Roku's a platform, right? So we have direct connection with 56 million households, whether they're consuming an SVOD platform, Showtime, Netflix, or if they're consuming a FAST channel or AVOD channel like the Roku channel. So, we're able to understand who our users are across all of these different types of viewing habits and behaviors.
Yeah, and I want to come back to Jeffrey for the whole panel here. Jeffrey asks, is CTV ad revenue always based on impressions, or is the platform data good enough to track click-throughs and conversions? We talked a little bit about this. Kumar, let's start with you.
Well, I think it has to be based on value, right? I mean, just measurement. We talked about measurement, but just measuring, impressions is not enough. What people are really buying is, are people actually transacting? Is there commerce happening? And what's unique about CTV is that, people they would normally have a mobile phone or a desktop or something. So, when you have an ad coming on CTV, can you track what people are doing within a certain amount of time? Are they doing something with it? So being able to track that, measure that, and be able to address that lower funnel, which is where there is a higher ROI and which can support a higher CPM for CTV, is very important.
Yeah.
I would just jump in there quickly. I think that's, sorry, Tom. I think that's, that's definitely something we're focused on. And it's really important that we define what are those KPIs and outcomes. So, the difference between a post click or a post view and following that consumer journey, cross channel and retargeting that. And so we're able to close the loop there. Right now we're really transacting based on a CPM basis, but measurement is getting better as we move down the funnel with the ability to retarget cross-channel in the platform.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about retargeting anyway, so I'm glad you brought that up. Tal, what's your take there?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in just about the click-through part of the question. So this is it's pretty obvious that we're in the early innings of connected television, meaning that in the same way that when iPhone launched, it was first used for phone calls, and then people realized that this is actually a computation platform. You can do so much more. So same thing happened with connected television, where the first steps is doing exactly the same thing as linear television, and then doing more. I think, for example, not to I don't know, corny, but like what Coinbase did on the Super Bowl, that's an example of what a click-through could happen. Obviously, there was a massive novelty factor in that, but it was enormously successful, propelling the app to the first or second in the App Store in a matter of minutes. And we do the same thing. Again, this is early days, but it's kind of obvious that the future of television marketing would be something that if I see an ad for, I don't know, a vacation rental on VRBO, and this is super cool, why can't I save it to my favorites and I want to share it with my wife and say, oh, this is actually something pretty awesome. I want to do that, or on Airbnb or something else. Or I see a movie trailer and I would like to, which is available on streaming, I can add it to my queue, or just or remind me later, or things like that. It's obvious that it will happen. I will just say that this year in 2022, Amazon is coming full force into the streaming world with Thursday Night Football. I would imagine that Amazon is kind of the kings of commerce, with every session of everyone watching Thursday Night Football is logged in with a Prime account. The lines are pretty close between watching Thursday Night Football and watching some, I don't know, NFL merch and adding it to my cart. It's a very, very short to connect the two dots. And if it's not this year, it will happen very soon.
Yeah, and I think that level of T-commerce, or whatever the new term of art is happening. And another data point, eMarketer has said that in 2022, we will see 204 million US viewers through connected TV devices. But I think the whole ecosystem, IP-based, and particularly the thing that doesn't get mentioned enough is the incredible performance of our networks here during the pandemic, and also the increase in speeds. And we didn't even talk about 5G here. We're almost at the end of time, and that's when I get to say thank you to our incredible panelists. First and foremost, our sponsor of this session, Kumar Subramanian, give it up, the CEO of MediaMelon. Jessica Masters, Director of East Coast Sales, Roku, thank you so much. Aulden, Kaye, one of the new faces of 22, somebody to watch. Director of Advertising Partnerships at Philo. Last but not least, one of my favorite people in this industry, Chalozin, CTO, co-founder of Innovid, and that's Bob's Burgers behind, in case you're going to watch this. And please tell people, the 120 or so of you who watch, including Tal's mother, Tell other people to watch this on demand. I really love this session, and there's some great insights from all four of you. I'm Chris Pfaff, CEO of Chris Pfaff Tech Media, LLC. I think it's time to give it back to Eric. Is
It
Eric
indeed
there?
is. And thank you, Chris.
you.
That was outstanding. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, everyone, for joining in. The winner of the Amazon gift card is Ira Dworkin. Ira, keep an eye out on your email. Probably not till next week for information about that. And thanks again to MediaMelon for sponsoring this panel, and Bird Dog and Harmonic for sponsoring this whole week. We will be back in about 30 minutes to talk about the evergreen topic of low, ultra low, and super hyper mega ultra low latency. Hope to see you then, and hope to see many of you in Boston in May. I know Chris will be there. We'll see you.